Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Hugh here from Creative. I'm here with Jonathan.
My name is Jonathan Winbush. I'm a motion graphics artist. I've been working in the industry over a decade now, working in movies like Iron Man, My Little Pony, done TV shows like
Wait, Iron Man and My Little Pony, that is
yeah, so
funny comparison.
So the Marvel stuff. My son likes the My Little Pony stuff. My daughter likes it. There's a good blend in there. So,
Nice.
so I've been doing VR for about 4 or 5 years now. Mostly working in the 360 space. I was actually dubbed by some members of Adobe as a pioneer in the field with because of my work with Mixmaster Mike. We had worked on a project called the Magma Chamber, which was the first ever hip hop 360 music video. And during that time, it was a lot of experimenting. I discovered what Mettle was doing. We kind of worked together and built a monster of a project. And it went on to win a couple of awards. We beat out Bjork that year, Queen with Bohemian Rhapsody at the VR Fest. And then it went on to the Cannes Film Festival. As you can see on the wall, we've won, I think for the first one, we won like 6 awards internationally.
Nice.
And it's just been going full steam ahead. Then our second project, the Moon Base Invasion, just went even crazier. We were just experimenting even more. And we're actually working on the third track now. We can't mention who's going to be a part of it, but it's going to be another monster. So
nice.
Yeah, the VR train just keeps on moving.
Can't wait. So for you guys don't know what is Mettle, Mettle is a plugin. Actually, why not integrate inside Adobe? So you allow you to insert like footage into a CG environment to make it look cool. So Jonathan, I know today you're gonna show us a little bit about your magic in Cinema 4D, After Effects, composition, and a little bit FLUX too, right?
Yeah. So a little bit of FLUX, a little bit of Mantra. Like you said, I work mainly in After Effects and Cinema 4D. So I'll show you guys how to take some green screen footage, composite it together in After Effects, and then we'll build our environment in Cinema 4D. And the beauty about that is there's no stitching involved at all. So once you build out your set, you put your 3D camera in the middle and you just render it out and you're good to go. So that way you could really focus on your compositing and working on the magic and not spending days worrying about stitching and stuff. And
I love this here. I hate stitching. So let's dive right in, guys.
What I'm going to show you guys first is how to do this wormhole effect. This is similar to what I did for the Mixmaster Mike Moonbase Invasion. I'm going to take files from the NASA website because you can use all that stuff for free. It's public domain. And what we're going to do is we're going to take those images, make them so that they're a seamless texture, and bring them into Cinema 4D, wrap them around a sphere, and then basically make a loop so when we bring it into After Effects, we don't have to worry about rendering thousands of frames. We could just make a 150 frame loop at 60 FPS, and then we'll just have it keep looping, and you can add different effects to it like Mantra and to kind of just, spice it up a little bit and not make it look like it's a continuous loop. So this is the effect that we'll be creating here. Let's get started. If you go to Google and look up like NASA Nebula images, you'll see a whole plethora of stuff show up here. So I usually just go through, maybe click on the first one, see what kind of images they have here. And like I said, everything is free to use. And you could get some pretty beefy images, like this one's 11 megabytes. I've seen stuff go up to 16K. So kind of just go through, search for what you want. And let's say I downloaded this one earlier because I'm going to show you guys how to make it into a seamless texture. So I grabbed this one, the Carina Nebula, and there's this program called B2M by Allegorithmic. And basically B2M allows you to take any type of still and make it into a seamless texture. So whether you have like a grass texture, a rock texture, anything that you want to use in CG, you want it to be seamless on the edge. So because when you put it on your geometry, you don't want to see any like blocked out edges. You want everything to be nice and flush. So when you open up the program, you see it says drop a bitmap here. So I'm going to go to that Carina image that I downloaded from NASA, drop it in here, make it the main input, and automatically you see it come up on this geometry here. Now you can have any type of geometry in here, but the cube is kind of just the basic, so you can see along the edges there. And so you can make it any output size you want, up to 4K. So just for the example, I'll just do 4K, and then you go over here under global, and you see a little icon here. It says make it tile. Now you have several different options here. You can go through if you really just want to kind of dial it in, but just for this reference here or this example, I'll just click random, and then you'll see after it's done calculating here, we have our seamless texture. And I mean, it was literally like 2-3 clicks. You know, you could dial it in any way that you want, but yeah, it gives you a pretty good seamless texture right off the bat. And then you can actually output it with you know, you can have metallics, you can have your roughness pass, your displacement, bump map, normals. You can have a whole bunch of stuff output with it, so that when you bring it into CG, you get all the bumps and the wrinkles and the reflections and everything else. So I mean, I would just say, I think they have a trial. I say go to the website, try it out, and just play around with it. But yeah, that's just a quick little tutorial on how to do that.
Can you go into a little bit detail about the replacement map, like the thing you just mentioned, like the output format? Like what is that helpful in the CG?
Yeah, so when you're inside of CG, let me open up the image that I made earlier. So this is the textures that I made earlier. And so when you output that, you'll get these right here. So this is your base, which is your color. That's just your flat, your color image. And then your bump map, which I'll show you in Cinema 4D, it will take the values of the black, the whites, and the grays. And depending on where it's at, like I believe it's the blacks, no, the whites raise higher and the blacks are flat. So when you bring it on, think of it as like a mountain terrain.
So like a depth map, right?
Yeah, basically. And so your blacks will be level, and then the grays will be higher, and then the whites will be your peak. Perfect. And then your normal maps right here, you see this like purplish, bluish image. That's just all your little details. So you put that on top of your geometry, and it'll add like the little crevices and the little nicks and everything in there, just to add a little bit more finer detail to your geometry. So I'll show you that now, actually, what all that stuff does. So let me get out of this program here. I come into Cinema, and you might notice this from the video we played earlier. So just as a quick breakdown, I'm not going to go through everything here. Like that's for, you know, a cinema tutorial, but it's really, really basic. So I made a cylinder. Let me open up a new project so you can see. So if you go over here, this is all your basic geometries. And so basically all I did was make a tube, and then, you know, you can make it as long as you want. So what I did was I made the rim pretty much all the way out. And then I just made it crazy long, like your height, let's say like 2,000. And so this is just your tube. I think I went as long as you could go, and then it wasn't quite long enough, so I just kept replicating it, and that's why you want that seamless texture too, because I just wanted a really long tube, so we could have the camera go through it super fast, so it looks like you're traveling, almost like Doctor Who's intro, and it just looks crazy once you get it to go seamless. So I just created a really long tube here. Let me go back to my other window. And so if you look at it from the top view, this is how long our tube is. So it's just crazy long. And if you look right here, the axis that's our camera. So the way that I animated it was I actually only have the camera sitting in the 0 position. So the XYZ is all zeroed out. And then on the rotate, I just have it rotating left and right a little bit, just, you know, to give it that little bit of hovering feel. And the way that I animated the wormhole was actually animated the cylinder moving, so that I could keep my camera exact 0, move the cylinder, and that way I was able to kind of angle it out and get a good loop point. And so if I play this from the top, you can see the cylinder is just moving. And I had to manually match it up by eye. Like I went and, let me see. So this is our camera view here. So I took it from that and then went up 150 frames and then just kind of eyeballed it. So it's like, okay, that looks like that. And I just got it close enough that it would just make a good loop point, because each cylinder has the same texture on it. And so basically, you know, it's all just going to loop out. But I can show you how we made this texture here from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I like to use is a third-party render engine called REDSHIFT. Now the Cinema 4D render is good, but it's CPU, and for a lot of stuff that I'm doing in like 4K or even in VR, which could get up to like 8K, you want to use GPU rendering. So on my machine here, I have four 1080 Ti's and I have the AMD 1950 Threadripper. And I want to take full advantage of those graphics cards because, speed is everything. You want to render it out so you can get to the creative part. So you don't want to be sitting around. So what I'm using is REDSHIFT here. The principle is the same for making a material using just the standard Cinema 4D. But like I said, you really want to be working fast. So once I bring up the REDSHIFT, you'll have this graph editor in here. And it looks a little bit intimidating. It's all using nodes, but it's super simple. Like you can actually drag and drop your images in there. So like I'll start with my base color. I'll bring it over. I'll just drop it in. It's going to take a second to load in because it's a 4K texture. And then your output color, you just drag it over until the line turns green. Okay, yeah, so when you let go, you'll come up with all these options. And basically, I know there's a lot of options here, but you just have to kind of think, okay, so I brought my diffuse color in. You want to connect it to your diffuse color. So it's as simple as that. And then so you connect that, and then we'll see our texture pop up on our material screen.
Mm-hmm.
And then let me replace it with... So what I'm doing is I'm replacing the materials that are already built with the one we just built. So you can kind of see once I start adding the bump map and the normals. And just for speed's sake, let me take this down. I'll just make it 1080 instead of our 3K so it renders a little bit faster.
Mm-hmm.
So it's preparing. Actually, let me take it off the stereo camera so we can see what we're doing as well. So I'll show you guys how to do that later, but we're just going to do standard for now. Okay, so if you can see here, you saw how fast that rendered. That's because of the GPU rendering. It's rendering within seconds. And so this is just our preview window here. But you can see we have our seamless texture on there. Everything is smoothed out. Now, inside of space, nothing is that smooth. We have, the different nebulas or have different depths to them. And to be able to kind of simulate that, I'm going to add our... Oh, let me stop this. Okay, I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to bring in our displacement map. So our bump map here, the one with the gray values, you just drag and drop that into here. And then over on our side here, you could just type it in, displacement. Let me make this larger so everybody can see it. So here's our bump map here with our gray values. Displacement, you drag and drop it in here. And then you just connect it like we did before. You take the output until it turns green, let go of the click, and then go to texture, and then make it a texture map. Mm-hmm. And as you work with this stuff, it just becomes second nature. Like it just takes a little bit of getting used to, and so we have our bump map going to our displacement, telling us a displacement map, and then we're going to connect to our main output, telling it's a displacement map. And then just give it a couple of seconds for it to update there. In our height field, or no, what is it? Our space type, we want tangent, just because it's going to give us a little bit more depth. Mm-hmm. And then let me pull up our render window again, and we should see a big difference in the height map there. So I'm going to render it again. And so you can see now we're starting to get the little cloud effects. Oh, wow. Like it's actually adding depth to it. And so as we're traveling through, you're going to actually feel those clouds, like the depth coming past you, because we're going to render it in stereo 3D. And so, yeah, I mean, that was just a couple of clicks. It's just that simple. And then just add in a little bit of detail in there. It might not be apparent detail, but, I'm a stickler for just any small details that you add in there. It just makes the production value that much better. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to bring on our normal map. So here's our normal map that I have here. I'm going to drag and drop that into here again. So here's our 4K normal map texture. And this one, you bring that in, and we'll do it the same way we did for our displacement map. You're going to connect these nodes, texture, input, and then connect it to here. It's in the overall, and then bump input. And I can send you a map on how to map this stuff out. It just takes a little bit of working with to get used to it, but it's like anything. As you work with it, it becomes second nature. So again, we want to use our tangent space to give the bump a little bit more oomph. And now hit render here again. We should see a little bit of difference, just adding a little bit of detail into our wormhole. Okay, give me a couple of seconds and it's done. Yeah, so now we have a little bit more detail in our depth, and that's essentially our wormhole. For this example, I rendered it out in 3K. So if you go up to your edit render settings, you have a bunch of presets in here. You know, for your film stuff, you have film 4K, you have HD, you have standard. But for this, since we're working in stereo, you'll want to go up to screen, and then down here, you'll have your square. And so you'll have your 4K, which is what, like 4096, about 4096. You can do your 3K here, which I'm going to do just to render it faster.
Is it possible to go to 8K?
Yeah, you can manually type in your specs here too. So
it still work.
Yeah. So just for the presets, it goes up to 4K, but you know, you can take it 16K if you want.
Nice.
But you just have to make sure your machine can handle it.
Yeah.
You know, that's a lot of rendering. So
if you try to render 6K stereo square,
yeah,
what is the average time to render?
Like that? See, that depends on your scene, what you're rendering. Like when I tried to render this yesterday, I think with my setup, it took around 3 minutes per frame.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it wasn't that bad. But you know, if you have like an intense scene, like say you have like a scene where you're in a jungle, you have the grass moving, you have wind effects and all that. I mean, that stuff could take way longer. So like this is a very simple scene, so it's going to render faster. But you know, the more complex your scene, the more render time you're going to add. And then just as you get used to the software, there's tricks and stuff you can do to optimize your scene, you know, to make the scene render faster.
Nice.
And so that's just all in the territory of working with the program.
Nice.
Learning the tricks. I'll just show you the 3K here, 3072. I'm going to go over to our camera, and all you have to do is click on
Did we show how to make the loop, like the loop point?
Yeah, so the loop point was...
And also the movement, how can you move the silicone into the camera?
So what I did was I started by, so we're going to go back to the top view. And so what I have clicked right here, this is our camera. So our camera is right here inside our long cylinder here. So I'll rename this to cylinder so we know what that is. So that's our cylinder. So our camera is this little green icon here. And so to get to the loop point, I basically manually had to do it. Like this red dot right here, that's our record. So that's when you click on it, it makes a keyframe.
It's a keyframe.
And then basically what I did was I went up to 150 frames. That's how long our scene is. And then I kind of just eyeballed it. So like at our beginning, I looked at the line. The line is right here, aligned with the camera. And then whenever I came up, I just went there, go down here, and just manually move the point. Or you could grab it, but since it's so long, like, you know, I could grab my Z right here, and you can manually move it. And I just did it until like it looked the same. So I manually moved it, made a keyframe, and then I come in here. So you can kind of see, like this is frame 0. And then I move up to 150, and it's practically lined up.
Got it.
But yeah, there's no mathematical way that I can figure out to make it exact. But you know, you just have to kind of go in and.
How can you see the preview of the loop? Like just looking visually, okay.
Oh, so you hit there's this green button here. You just play forward, and you can play it in your render preview here.
Nice, got it.
So yeah, you see as it's going up, you see. It's practically looping, like you can't even tell where the loop point is.
Got it.
and that just comes with experience too. You know, a lot of stuff is just problem solving. So, you know, I like to problem solve and figure stuff out as I go. And so that's just one of those things. I really wanted to make something that looked exquisite, but not have to deal with super long render times. Like normally what a lot of people will do is make their super long cylinder and then they render out like 2,000 frames, but that's not efficient because you know, you're wasting a lot of render time, especially because this stuff takes a bit to render. So the most logical thing to do is just make a loop and then work with your loop inside of After Effects.
Nice. Good to know.
And then, okay, so yeah, like I was saying, on your camera, you get onto your camera type and you can make it stereospherical. Like if you just want to make it mono, then you would just click spherical. And if I do a render in the window, let's see how long this will take. Hopefully not too long. Okay, yeah, so this is what your mono render would look like. But if you make it stereo, you get all these options that pop up down here. So the way we like to work is top to bottom, but you can also do side to side if that's your thing, or if you just want, you know, left eye only, right eye only. Yeah, you can make it 180. You can mix with your different degrees down here. I mean, you have full exposure to all the different settings. And so this one is 3K. That's right. So yeah, I'll show you what it looks like, top, bottom. And so yeah, when you render it out, that's exactly what you're going to get. So when you bring it into After Effects, we can I can show you how you can actually take 2D images, like just flat images, and actually work with them in the stereo setting there. Because a lot of times you might want to put like your logo or something in there, and there's like no way you can make your logo stereo. So in After Effects, you can actually work with it in real time. Like when you place it here, it's going to place it there, and it's going to be exact.
Replace the sphere function. Huh?
Yeah, and that's the part. That's all a part of the After Effects package now. Since they acquired the Mettle skybox stuff, all that stuff is built in now. So if you're on After Effects, you have all access to all that. So before I jump out of Cinema, did you have any more questions on how to do anything else in here, or you want to jump into After Effects?
Yeah, let's jump into After Effects and see how to composite these two together with live footage.
Okay.
Thank you for watching the part 1 of this advanced 360 VR motion graphic design series. I try to keep each episode under 20 minutes because there are lots of information to take in and you need time to practice what you just learned from Jonathan. In part 2, we will show you how to bring in 3D assets like the stereo background we just created in Cinema 4D into After Effects, and composite it with a live action green screen VR180 footage I shot with the Zcam K1 Pro, and color grading techniques you can use to mesh them together as a seamless futuristic design like what you saw at Moon-Base Invasion. In part 3, we will show you how you can obtain free 3D assets on the internet instead of making your own in Cinema 4D. Some rendering techniques without using REDSHIFT. We will show you how to create an interesting 3D background with the brand new Mettle FLUX, and how to put everything together with the live action green screen, VR180 footage, and 3D elements all within After Effects. A good VR piece cannot be finished without good audio that communicates with the video. So in part 4, we will show you audio techniques beyond just spatial audio. We will use Subpack, a wearable-based system, to design graphical elements that react to the music, which we will use the brand new track from Mixmaster Mike. We will show you how easy to leverage the powerful audio react engine from Mettle Mantra to create some very interesting effects. I will also create a bonus episode to show you how I approach using VR180 Green Screen footage within VR360, and how to key out VR180 footage with Boris effects, continuum, and other chroma key solutions. This is a massive series designed to up your game in virtual reality, a bridge between live action VR to motion graphic design, and to achieve some of the Hollywood effect you see in recent successful VR pieces. We want to make this series for you, so comment below if you have any question and requests. Again, we are doing this free and all out of the love of VR. So it will really help us if you can like our videos and share this series with your friends. Now go take a break and come back next week for part 2 in After Effects.